my name is Lexi, and today I will be sharing with you books I would sell my soul to read again for the first time. Let's get to it. Hi friends, my name is Lexi and welcome back to my channel. Also, a couple disclaimers. Number one, I wouldn't actually sell my soul for anything, so I just thought it was a catchy title. And number two, this is not an original concept. I'm gonna go ahead and leave down below a couple of different videos from content creators who have also done this concept because I just feel like the title is so catchy. And it really puts things in perspective because a lot of us have books that we just absolutely loved and gave 5 out of 5 stars to, but there are very specific books that I think all of us have read where the first time we read it was such a magical experience that we wish we could relive it again and again. You know what I mean? So these aren't just like my favorite books or books that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. These were books where I remember the reading experience and it was literally magical. You know, like fairies were singing and angels were excited. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So if you want to check out more videos like this, I will leave a couple of them down below. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get straight into the book recommendations. The first book that I would sell my soul to read again for the very first time would be Bunny by Mona Awad. This book was such a trip. I feel like most people who have read this agree. Like whether you hate this book or not, the whole thing was just a weird trip. And it was one that was quite enjoyable. So this is an adult literary fiction and our protagonist's name is Samantha. And Samantha is currently attending a very prestigious MFA program when she tries to get in with a clique. And there is this very specific clique that also attend her writing program and they call themselves Bunny. Like they're the bunnies. They don't refer to themselves as any of their individual names. They just call themselves the bunnies. Like, hi Bunny, how are you Bunny? I love you Bunny. Let's be real, if that was a real thing, we would all hate these people. But in the book, it kind of works because it seems creepy as heck. And throughout the book, Samantha slowly kind of starts to get sucked into their cult, and these people can do weird things. Strap in for that. I remember the first time reading this and just not knowing what the heck was going on. And it wasn't until the very last page of this book that everything made so much sense to me and I just thought it was brilliant. This particular book has a lot of different speculative elements to it, so if you were a person who likes the weird and bizarre things that just happen in a book and don't really make a lot of sense, this is definitely going to be a thriller for you. But I would say that a lot of people don't tend to vibe with the book either because it is so bizarre. So it is a 5 out of 5 star for me and it's one of my favorite books and I love the experience, but it's really important for me to say this is not an experience that everyone else is going to enjoy. I will also say that you don't have to be an English major or creative writing major to appreciate this book at all, but there are quite a few symbolic things that Mona Awad has put in here that I think a lot of creative writing majors will really appreciate. Mona Awad actually got her MFA from Brown University and I feel like a lot of this is an ode to her experience. I talk a lot about my spoilery thoughts in a Dark Academia vlog that I can go ahead and link somewhere. So if you're interested in hearing my specific spoilery thoughts on this book and why I loved it, and also seeing my experience reading this for the first time, you can check that out. But yeah, I loved it. I loved it so much. I just love you, Bunny. I'm never doing that again, I promise. The next book I have here is, I think, like an old school favorite. This was huge on BookTube when it first came out. Right now it's pretty polarizing. Some people literally hate this book. And if that is you, like, listen, you just keep doing you, my friend, okay? But for me, I loved this book so much. And I remember the first time reading it and just being so completely enthralled with the writing. And that is E. Lockhart's We Were Liars. This book is following a group of very, very wealthy cousins, and they all actually stay on this little island together. And every single year, the 4 of them kind of all hang out, but they are all lying about something this one particular summer. It's a book exploring family dynamics and how money can play such a toxic role in families, and it was absolutely everything to me. The back says, "We are Sinclairs, no one is needy, no one is wrong. We live at least in the summertime on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. Perhaps that is all you need to know, except that some of us are liars." I remember the first time I was reading this, and the writing is one of the things that really shocked me. Lockhart writes in this very, very specific and descriptive way that really shocks the reader's experience and really shapes, I think, the reader's experience as well. One of the most vivid scenes to me is when our main protagonist, Candace, is saying goodbye to her father. Her father is like leaving her and her mom. Lockhart actually describes that her father turns around and shoots her with a bullet into her heart. But he doesn't really do that. It's not explained as to what's happening, but you kind of understand that this is just how it feels to Candace. It feels like her father just shot her in the heart because he's leaving them. I would love to go back to the summer I first read this for the first time. I was bawling my eyes out to this book. I still think it's incredible. I think everyone should read it. Yeah. The next book I have here is an adult literary fiction, and that is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a book that I actually wasn't expecting to love so much, but when I picked it up, I literally could not put it down. Normal People is a book that I devoured in a single day. I was completely obsessed with this book, and I do have a vlog about this one as well. This is about Connell and Marianne, who become friends, and then they kind of have like a friends to benefit situation when they are in high school together, but Connell wants to keep it a secret because Marianne is really uncool, which, I mean, let's be real, is kind of a move. But then when they grow up, Connell meets Marianne again at university, and she seems to be the one with all the answers and all the friends, and the cycle kind of repeats. The reason I wish I could relive this experience is because I was expecting something totally different from this book. I was expecting this to be kind of like an epic love story, but it's so much more than that. It's really a commentary on how we have been given love as a child can kind of affect what we project onto our relationships. I just thought everything about this was so clever. I felt like Sally Rooney really made so many astonishing and really painful realizations and statements that I personally could totally relate to. This is a book that's definitely not for everyone, but for the people who it's for, it will break your heart apart. I love Normal People so much. Definitely one of the best experiences I've ever had while reading a book. It touched me so very much. The next book that I want to talk about is gonna be maybe surprising, and that is Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse Five. This book is a book that I was not expecting to like, let alone love. I actually had to read this for my contemporary literature class when I was getting my English degree in creative writing and English literature, and I did not think I was gonna like this book at all. And so the reason it's on this list is because I would love to relive those moments where I'm slowly starting to fall in love with the book that has completely taken me by surprise. This book is following Billy Pilgrim, and it's really a commentary on how horrible and tragic war is and how it can have devastating effects even after you have survived the war. Kurt Vonnegut really plays with a lot of different literary devices in here. He was absolutely brilliant. He does a lot of repeating symbolism in here, which had actually never been done before. He also plays with some different genre things, so it reads a little bit like a contemporary, but then he adds in different science fiction elements, which were just brilliant. There were so many quotes from this particular book that moved me to the point of tears. And while I was reading it, I remember saying, I want to get this as a quote and just tattoo it on my body. Like at one point, there were 20 different quotes from this book that I wanted to get as tattoos. I actually stand by this. I do actually want a quote from this book to tattoo someday. I just remember falling in love with this book and it being so completely out of the blue and unexpected. It's kind of like when you meet a person and there's not an immediate chemistry between you, and so you're not expecting to fall in love with them, and then when the feelings hit hard, it's like they hit harder than if you had liked them from the beginning because it just came out of nowhere. That's how I feel about this book. I love it so much. The next book is YA, and it is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is a book that I have definitely tabbed up. I've actually reread this, I think 3 or 4 times, and it's not a book for everyone because the writing is so bizarre. But again, the girls that get it, get it. Because if you are a person who loved this book, you don't just love this book a little bit, you love this book with every fiber of your being. So this was actually a recommendation from one of my friends, Kat, several years ago. I ended up reading this, I think in the spans of 2 or 3 days in the summertime, a couple of years ago when I was getting my master's in library science, and I fell in love with Jandy Nelson's writing. I'll Give You the Sun is following 2 twins, Jude and Noah, and the book is actually split between 2 different timelines. So we have Noah's perspective of things when I think he was 13 years old, and he and his twin sister were still best friends. And then half of the book is actually told in Jude's perspective when they are 16 and they are no longer speaking. And so we're trying to figure out what happened to make them stop speaking to each other for 3 years. The book is that mystery, but it's so much more, because it's a romance between Noah and his crush. It's a romance between Jude and her crush. It's a commentary on family and sibling dynamics and secrets, and also how family secrets can kind of tear you apart. But it's also a huge commentary on the importance of art and of celebrating art. And I love that so much as a person who just loves art so much. I love reading books about art. This whole thing was talking about the importance of art in our everyday lives, and it was so beautiful. The people who are really, really gonna love this book are people who love very lyrical and lush writing. Some of it gets a little bit lost in translation sometimes because Jandy Nelson writes emotions and feelings as actions that are not really happening. So it's a little bit like Lockhart, how Candace says that her dad shoots her when he doesn't really shoot her. Like there's one image where our main protagonist is falling in love with someone, and he pictures him as a boy who is floating among the stars. And as the audience and as readers, we have to try to decipher, is this really happening? Is this boy really floating up to the stars? Or is this like how Noah is perceiving this boy because he loves him? So it can be a little bit tricky navigating the writing the first time, but it's just so beautiful. The next book I want to talk about is a book that I actually didn't think I was gonna like. Again, I actually picked this book up because I lost a game. I didn't want to read this book, which makes the experience of reading it that much more special to me, because I was convinced it was going to be a book where I DNF'd it. And lo and behold, I completely fell in love with it, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is an adult standalone fantasy, but it's so much more different than I thought it was going to be. I really thought that this was almost going to be like Greek or something, like a Greek retelling. I don't know, there's something about the cover that made me feel like this was going to feel maybe slightly pretentious, maybe kind of inaccessible, something that I was gonna have a hard time understanding. And then when I started to read it for the first time, I was genuinely lost. I had no idea what was going on. But that's kind of the point. The point is to push through the not knowing what's going on, because once you find out what's going on, it completely blows your mind. Highly, highly, highly worth the read. And I wish I could go back to that day when I thought I was gonna hate it and I ended up binging it in 24 hours. The next book I have here is a fantastic book, and it's a book that I read very, very quickly as well, and that is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. So this particular book is following 2 twin sisters who are both Black women, but they are also white passing. One of them decides to go back to the town where she lived and to embrace her heritage and everything, and she raises her daughter as a Black woman. The other one decides to try to be white passing, and we are following the repercussions of both of their decisions throughout their lives and how these decisions actually impact and affect their daughters. It's so fascinating, and the writing in it is so incredibly stunning. The book itself will break your heart. Some of it is very, very hard to get through because there are so many parts in here where you just realize like how unjust and unfair so many things are, but it's also so beautiful. The writing is so moving, and it's one of those books where the first time you read it, the experience really, really stays with you. I could not recommend this book more. And I have one more book that I would like to share with you. But before I share that, I have 3 here that I just briefly want to hold up. I try really hard to not talk too much about the same books over and over and over again because I don't want to bore any of you guys. And I know that I've discussed all 3 of these books in so many different videos that I didn't necessarily want to discuss them again in this video. If you want to know more about my thoughts, I can link them down below. But I did just want to show you 3 books that I also would totally sell my soul to read again. Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire was the book that I stayed up all night long reading, and then I woke up my mom and gave her a play-by-play for hours about my feelings for this book. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller is a book that made me cry so hard, I actually felt like I couldn't breathe, and then I started rereading it again. I've probably read it about 4 times in my life. And then finally, Lock Every Door by Riley Sager is the best thriller maybe I've ever read in my whole entire life. And the first time I read this, I could not put it down, and I thought it was brilliant. So again, I didn't want to bore you by talking about the same 3 books in every single video, but all 3 of these books are books that I would, yes, indeed, sell my soul to read for the first time again. But having said that, let's go on to the final book on this list, which is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. So here's my disclaimer for this book. I read this book when I was 16 years old, and it is over 1,000 pages long, and I have not reread it since I was 18. So I don't know if the themes and the writing still hold up to today's standards, but let me tell you, when I read this for the first time and I was 16 years old, it shook me like no other book, maybe since Harry Potter. Like, I don't think I fell in love with the book quite this hard since probably Harry Potter. This is a book that I actually picked up because my best friend at the time, McKenna, had recommended that I pick it up, and I didn't think I was gonna like it, but we were pen pals and we like to read a lot of the same books, and so I thought, okay, let me pick it up, let me try it. And I was expecting to maybe work my way through it for a couple of months. Little did I know I would stay up for 48 hours and complete the entire thing without sleeping. I did not sleep for 2 full days, and I devoured this, and I liked it so much, I then decided to immediately reread it. It was that good. This book is an adult historical fiction, and we're following a very wide cast of characters. The main story kind of revolves around Tom, who is a builder, and he is hired to build this cathedral, and we're following his family, and then later on we're following the people who his family collides with and like who they meet. This kind of is like an epic, sort of like Game of Thrones, except there's no magic in here. So if you enjoy like the time period kind of vibes from Game of Thrones and how people randomly die and there's all of these secrets and betrayal and lots of different plot twists, you'd probably really like this because it's so epic. This is also the first book where I fell in love with one of the characters, not because of the way the character was described, but because of the character's intelligence. This is one of the first books that made me realize that what I find most attractive in a person isn't actually how they look, it's how they act and how their heart is, and intelligence. I think intelligence is incredibly sexy, and I didn't realize any of these things until I read this book, and I realized how shallow like just looks are in general. Again, I would say I don't know if it holds true to today's standards, but when I read this, it was one of the best books I had ever read, and it really shaped my literary taste, and I would give almost anything to go back and experience it for the first time again. But there you guys have it. Those are all of the books that I would sell my soul to read again. Again, would I sell my soul? No. Would I sell other stuff? Probably not. But it was a catchy title, so. But now I'm really curious. Are there books that you wish you could go back and reread again for the first time? If there are, please let me know down below. Also, have you read these books? What are your thoughts on them? Please let me know that down below as well. And I think that is it for now, you guys. If you have made it to this point of the video, please leave me the coffee emoji, because I really need a cup of coffee right now. And I think that that is going to be it. So until next time, book lovers, keep your head in the clouds and your heart in a book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.
Always think of you when spring comes, like it's something in the air at that time. Don't know why. Always dream of you when spring comes. It's like the heat on my skin.